Let's welcome Prakash Diwan on the show right now. Prakash, you've heard what Vishal had to say about this deal. And of the two deals that happened over the last 2 days, one was JB Chem as well as Torrent Pharma. The other one was JSW Paint and Akzo Nobel. Which one do you think is a better bet in terms of shareholder capital deployment?
Good morning. Good morning, Banglam. It all depends on, so we are assuming that you're talking about existing shareholders in both these companies. So if I were an Akzo Nobel shareholder, does the deal make sense? To be honest, it does, because what happens is Akzo Nobel's plans to exit India have been, openly expressed for the last year plus maybe. And there are lots of things which are happening in the environment, the competitive intensity going up, and Akzo Nobel didn't really look at doing much in terms of, leveraging their brand strength and their presence. But with aggressive player like JSW coming in, things could probably look up. They have the right to kind of be at least in the top three, which means it's Asian Paints, Birla Opus, and Akzo Nobel with the JSW bandwagon. So there are synergies which make sense to stay put. On the Torrent JB Pharma deal, it's very clear. JB Chem is been a very good wealth generator all these years. In fact, I think it's been about 5x in the last 3-4 years. And there will be some consolidation which will happen. Torrent, of course, has had a great track record in the past on inorganic growth. So you could get some sort of a comfort from that. But whether the stock really has an upside beyond this, the question is maybe, organically it could continue growing at about 15-18%. But there's nothing very spectacular that could happen just because Torrent's acquiring them. So, at the current levels, it probably makes sense for you to take a call on moving to something else, or wait for at least the consolidation and then kind of re-enter, is what I would feel maybe an ideal recommendation.
Okay, all right. Hi, Prakash. Good morning. Good to see you in. I want to ask you about the big boy Reliance Industries. Over the weekend, there were various unconfirmed reports that suggested that Reliance and Rosneft could be doing a deal out there, which could be a multi-billion-dollar deal. It'll be interesting because it could probably make Reliance the largest refiner in the country. And also, it will increase their OTC EBITDA by a large extent. The stock in the last 1 year actually is unmoved, but it's found its momentum in the last 3 months. At 1,500 rupees, what's your take?
Good morning, Nigel. So I've been a big believer in the Reliance story over the long period of time. They've kind of overcome setbacks, environmental, regulatory, seasonal, whatever you call it, and all new businesses that they have nurtured have kind of started reaching a stage of maturity. You look at the Jio numbers, I think, they added 10 times more than what Bharti's done with all the aggression that Bharti seems to be getting back. So Jio has done things more quietly. And I'm sure closer to the AGM, you'll probably start seeing an expectation build that there could be some announcements towards some sort of a roadmap on the listing, whether it's Jio, retail, whatever. But my sense is, and retail, by the way, retail is also doing exceedingly well. If you look at the ground reality of, what numbers add up, the kind of aggression they have started demonstrating in terms of faster delivery turnarounds and all of that. So I don't think there's any reason, and if this O2C thing is likely to come through, I think it will spur the stock to come back to its to its highs. And look at where the momentum of the market is. I mean, it's, Reliance carries almost 10% plus kind of weight in the Nifty. So if the Nifty were to do well, Reliance were to do well, Nifty has to do well. So it's like a cyclical thing. It's a self-fulfilling arrangement. You will see Reliance do well because the kind of buying that's happening is fairly large and it's institutional. And I wouldn't be surprised if the FIs have started to add to their portfolio. Till now, it's been under-owned in that aspect. And that's kind of probably changing now. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers and the kind of volumes and delivery numbers that have been reflected on the screen. But fundamentally, I think Reliance definitely has much more space to go because for the first time, all its verticals have started kind of maturing and performing and revving up to the optimal levels.
All right. And finally, before we let you go, Prakash, do you have a view on the oil marketing companies? Time to tank up. Oil prices are lower and we don't have any near-term events like state elections, etc. So there could be a case for, prices to stay where they are. That means that's margin positive for them. Would you view this?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think Manglam, this is one basket that will surprise everybody in the next couple of years, and I'm saying couple of years, not necessarily just the next couple of quarters. And don't, notwithstanding the fact that this quarter numbers, June end numbers, they'll probably report a record profit just because of the kind of crude levels, price levels that they have enjoyed. And you're right. Last year around the election in June, there was anticipation that the moment the elections are done with, you'll probably see some sort of a price, this thing change. That didn't happen. So all that margin is still sitting on the books, and this will continue. And the big bugbear out there was the LPG subsidies, which will start coming back to them in trickles, if it's not like a torrent, but which means that it'll keep adding to the P&L incrementally without much of outflows looking forward. So I think you need to just take a basket approach, buy all three of them, because all of them have their own salience, and at times things work differently. But for the next 2 years, I would be surprised if this becomes what happened to defense companies in terms of a re-rating. So there's a huge re-rating that's kind of anticipated, or which is likely, but you'll have to be patient with it because it won't happen overnight.
Prakash, I wanted your view particularly on the auto space. Is there anything that you like here? You have the auto sales data, which is likely in the next couple of days, and the Vahan data does not indicate a big jump that we've seen in the month of June. Do you think things can improve? If yes, then what are the stocks that one should benefit most from it?
So quite difficult to hazard a guess, but the data that we've seen possibly could throw up some surprises on the two-wheeler side with some of the players like TVS who haven't been doing very well because of some, they launched a certain scheme for the dealerships. They've revamped the discounting structure, the kind of working capital needs that they have from dealers and all of that. So that could have probably helped, but generally, by and large, June is not a month where auto sales pick up. It's only post the monsoon that things will probably look up. But in the shadow of improving OEM sales, what we could look at is some of the ancillaries which will do well. And what you need to look at is slightly long range. But the notification that's come for the ABS in two-wheelers. Right now, it's only for 150cc, but now it's going to be, next year onwards, it's going to be for all two-wheelers. And that means a company like Bosch could be probably a very key beneficiary because they sit right on the top of the value chain out there. So, you will have certain moves like this which will benefit ancillaries selectively depending on the strengths. But I'm not too bullish on the OEMs at this point. And then you will have the likes of Mahindra and Mahindra battling it out with the Tatas on the EV side, because their aggression is kind of getting into shape. But barring that, I don't think any fireworks that are expected out of the numbers tomorrow.
Prakash, on this issue of ABS being mandatory, possibly for two-wheelers, if that were to happen, will it not push up pricing and therefore hurt demand for two-wheelers? And keeping that in mind, how would you approach two-wheeler names?
Yeah, so there is always that fear. It's very similar to when truck cabins were likely to get air conditioned compulsorily. There was a lot of protests. There were a lot of doubts whether the OEMs will be able to pass this off. But look at what has happened to a company like Subros in the last 1.5 years, right? I mean, it's kind of almost done about 200-250%. So this is something which takes time to get established. But if you see in the long run, people get used to a benefit and advantage that they're getting from a feature that's compulsorily added, because it does increase safety levels. So what it does is it helps you set off potential damage costs that you would have if something goes wrong. And then it's, of course, safety, human safety, that's what you're paying for. But the scale that two-wheelers have, Rima, will probably not mean that the ABS is going to be very expensive. It won't be an incremental load up on cost very significantly. But I would wait to see how things pan out. It's, as I said, it's still a long duration. 1 year is still quite some time away. But it's very positive for the overall upgradation of quality of vehicles. And this will also help in the export side to a lot of the players that have already been doing it. But they'll probably be able to optimize the costs once this happens domestically as well.